I should have known something was wrong when Jeffrey called me into his office on a Friday afternoon. Fridays were sacred at Patterson Design Works. We never scheduled important meetings then. But there I was, standing in the doorway while he gestured vaguely toward the chair across from his desk. "Max, take a seat," he said, not looking up from his computer. The office felt smaller than usual. Awards I'd helped the company earn lined the walls. The sleek Metaform coffee maker, my design, hummed in the corner, brewing Jeffrey's third espresso of the day. "We're restructuring the design department," he said after an uncomfortable silence. "The board is pushing for cost-cutting measures, and your position is, well, it's expensive." My stomach dropped. Expensive? The Metaform line brought in 40% of company revenue last quarter. "Yes, and we're grateful for that contribution." He finally looked at me, his expression practiced. "But we've decided to bring in fresh talent. Someone with new perspectives, different ideas." After 8 years? Just like that. Jeffrey slid a folder across the desk. 2 months severance. Clean out your desk by end of day. As the shock settled in, the door opened behind me. A young man, mid-20s, expensive haircut, zero experience written all over him, walked in with the confident stride of someone who's never earned anything. "Ah, perfect timing," Jeffrey said, suddenly animated. "Max, meet Tyler, my nephew. He'll be taking over the design department." Tyler graduated from design school last spring. Very promising talent. Tyler extended his hand. "Looking forward to building on your work," he said with rehearsed humility. I didn't take his hand. Instead, I looked back at Jeffrey. "Your nephew is the cost-saving measure?" "Tyler's bringing fresh perspectives at entry-level compensation," Jeffrey replied stiffly. "I'll need your building pass before you leave." An hour later, I stood at my desk filling a cardboard box with 8 years of memories while Tyler toured the office, introducing himself to my team, my former team. I carefully packed my personal sketchbooks, the ones containing initial concepts of the Metaform design, along with the framed document I kept on my desk. United States Patent Number 10,783,642, issued to Maxwell J. Ellison. Jeffrey never bothered to ask about it. He assumed the company owned everything I created. But I'd filed for that patent 2 weeks before joining Patterson, when the design was just a concept in my sketchbook. As I walked out, watching Tyler gesture excitedly to my designers about his vision, I felt a strange calm replace my initial anger. They didn't know what they didn't know, and in their ignorance, they'd handed me my future. I never intended to become an entrepreneur at 39. Most of my colleagues in product design dream of launching their own studio, but I'd been content at Patterson. Content enough, anyway. My name is Maxwell James Ellison. Industrial designer by training, problem solver by nature. My father ran a small machine shop outside Detroit, where I spent my childhood taking things apart to understand how they worked. After graduate school, I bounced between 3 companies before landing at Patterson Design Works. It was supposed to be my forever home. The Metaform wasn't even a work assignment initially. The idea came to me 3 years ago while watching my elderly mother struggle with her coffee maker's complicated interface. Why did simple tasks require navigating through multiple menus? Why couldn't the machine anticipate basic needs? For 6 months, I worked evenings and weekends developing a system that learned user preferences through subtle behavioral patterns. My apartment transformed into a workshop, circuit boards on the dining table, CAD models running on my computer, prototype shells in every corner. The breakthrough came at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. I'd integrated haptic response technology with predictive algorithms in a way nobody had attempted before. The machine didn't just remember settings. It recognized users by their handling patterns and adjusted automatically. I knew immediately what I had created was valuable. My friend Eliza, a patent attorney, had always lectured me about intellectual property protection. "Companies will take whatever you give them," she'd warned repeatedly. "Protect yourself first." 2 weeks before accepting the Patterson job offer, I filed the patent under my name. A small insurance policy, I thought at the time. Just good practice. When I brought the concept to Jeffrey 3 months into my new position, he was skeptical. "Consumers don't want machines that think," he'd said dismissively before adding, "but develop it on company time if you must." It took 18 months to perfect. The engineering team thought I was obsessive, demanding dozens of revisions for components that were good enough. But when the first production models hit the market, the response was immediate. The Metaform wasn't just another coffee maker. It transformed the user experience entirely. After walking out of Patterson, I drove to the overlook at Riverside Park. The city sprawled below as I called Eliza. "They replaced me with the boss's nephew," I said when she answered. "Those idiots," she replied without hesitation. "Did they even check who owns the patent?" "Apparently not. So what's your plan?" I watched the sunset reflect off downtown windows. "I don't know yet. Max, you've always been too reasonable for your own good," she sighed. "Most people would be plotting revenge. I don't want revenge. I said, realizing it was true. I just want what's fair. That night, I couldn't sleep. I scrolled through LinkedIn, updating my profile, when a message from Diane, our manufacturing liaison, popped up. Tyler's presenting his vision for Metaform 2.0 tomorrow. He's talking about streamlining your design. God help us. I set my phone down, strangely calm. Patterson was about to learn an expensive lesson about intellectual property, and I had decisions to make about my future. 3 weeks passed before I began networking again. My LinkedIn profile attracted immediate interest. The Metaform success had made me somewhat of a minor celebrity in product design circles. 2 major competitors reached out with generous offers, but something held me back from accepting. The first insights into Patterson's post-max reality came from Marco, my former prototyping lead, over beers at our usual spot. Tyler's completely redesigning the Metaform interface, he said, glancing around nervously as if Jeffrey might be lurking nearby. He calls it streamlining, but he's stripping out the adaptive learning module, says it's unnecessarily complex. I nearly choked on my drink. That's the core innovation. The whole system is built around it. Marco nodded grimly. He doesn't understand how the haptic recognition matrices interact with the preference algorithms. Nobody does except you. What about the documentation? I left detailed technical specs. Tyler says your documentation is overcomplicated. He's simplifying everything to hit a lower price point. I absorbed this information quietly. The adaptive learning system wasn't just a feature, it was the foundation. The haptic sensors detected minute variations in how users handled the machine, creating a unique identity signature. This fed the preference algorithm, which adjusted temperature, brew strength, and timing based on individual behavior patterns. Remove one element, and the entire ecosystem collapsed. More updates filtered in over the following weeks. Diane texted that production samples for Metaform 2.0 were failing basic quality testing. Aaron from engineering called to complain that Tyler rejected their concerns about thermal regulation in the simplified design. Hannah from marketing forwarded an email thread showing panicked discussions about delaying the launch. Meanwhile, I converted my garage into a workshop and began sketching improvements I'd always wanted to implement, but Jeffrey had deemed unnecessary expenses. Without corporate bureaucracy limiting my creativity, ideas flowed freely. The Metaform's original design used a 3-stage thermal extraction process I'd developed. Tyler had apparently reduced it to 2 stages to cut costs. What he didn't understand was that the middle stage created a pressure gradient essential for flavor extraction consistency. They've scheduled an emergency meeting with major retailers, Diane reported 6 weeks after my departure. The new samples taste terrible, and the machine keeps overheating. I wasn't surprised. The thermal system required precision calibration across all 3 stages, something documented in my technical specs that Tyler had ignored. 7 weeks in, Marco sent a photo of Jeffrey pacing the prototype lab, looking harried. Stock dropped 6% after rumors about production delays, his text read. Tyler's blaming engineering for not executing his vision properly. I should have felt vindication watching the chaos unfold, but mostly I felt sad for my former team caught in Tyler's incompetence. That evening, I received an unexpected email from Patterson's legal department requesting clarification on certain technical specifications. I forwarded it to Eliza without responding. Her reply came within minutes. They're fishing. They've discovered they don't fully understand the technology and are worried. But they still don't know about the patent. Not yet. Looking at my workbench covered with improved prototypes, I realized it was time to make a decision about my future. 8 weeks after my dismissal, Patterson's struggles became public. Tech blogs ran stories about production issues with the Metaform 2.0. Customer service was flooded with complaints about the new models. I didn't need insider information anymore. The company's desperation was playing out in real time for anyone paying attention. The Wall Street Journal ran a profile on Tyler, presenting him as a young innovator, refreshing a stagnant product line. The article quoted him saying, "Sometimes you need to break things down to build them better." I nearly threw my tablet across the room. He wasn't rebuilding, he was dismantling what he couldn't comprehend. My phone rang that evening. Jeffrey's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. "Max, it's Jeffrey. Look, I know things ended awkwardly, but we could use your insight on some technical matters. Just consultation work. Call me back." 3 days later, he called again. Then again the following week. Each message grew increasingly desperate. Meanwhile, I was researching business formation, manufacturing partnerships, and startup funding. My severance had nearly run out, but Eliza introduced me to Richard Oakes, a venture capitalist who specialized in hardware startups. "Your patent alone makes this interesting," Richard said during our first meeting. "But your improvements to the original design? That's what makes it investment worthy." I'd enhanced the thermal regulation system and expanded the adaptive learning capabilities. The new prototype could distinguish between multiple users in the same household and adjust settings accordingly. I'd also reduced manufacturing costs by redesigning the sensor array, ironically accomplishing what Tyler had attempted without sacrificing functionality. "We need to move quickly," Richard advised. "Patterson's failure creates a market opportunity, but they'll eventually figure something out." Richard underestimated how badly Patterson was floundering. Quarterly results revealed a 25% drop in appliance division revenues. An anonymous employee leaked internal emails showing Tyler blaming engineering, while engineering pointed to impossible design parameters. Aaron called me from the Patterson parking lot one evening. "They're bringing in consultants to reverse engineer the original metaform. Tyler's been sidelined. He's technically still department head, but Jeffrey's taken direct control." I thanked him for the information and wished him well. Then I called Richard. "We need to accelerate our timeline," I said. "Patterson's getting desperate." The following morning, I received a formal letter from Patterson's legal department requesting my immediate assistance with technical specifications, offering a substantial consulting fee. I forwarded it to Eliza. "They still think this is just about understanding the technology," she remarked. "They haven't even looked into the patent situation." I was finalizing partnership agreements with a manufacturer when the bombshell dropped. Patterson issued a press release announcing production delays due to unexpected technical complications and a strategic reset of their appliance division. Their stock plummeted 15% in a single day. That evening, Jeffrey didn't bother with formalities. His text read simply, "Whatever you want. Name your price to come back." I didn't respond. Instead, I signed the final documents establishing Ellison Innovations, LLC. As I filed the paperwork, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Patterson Design Works CEO faces shareholder revolt over product failures. The pieces were falling into place faster than I'd anticipated. Now it was time to execute the plan I'd been carefully crafting. Securing funding was just the first step. With Richard's investment, I leased a small industrial space 15 miles from Patterson's headquarters. Close enough to tap the same talent pool, far enough to avoid daily reminders of my past. My initial impulse was to rush to market, capitalizing on Patterson's floundering. But Eliza counseled patience. "Before you do anything else," she advised during a strategy session, "we need to establish unquestionable legal footing." She arranged a meeting with Robert Chin, a specialist in intellectual property litigation. He reviewed my patent documentation with meticulous attention. "This is remarkably thorough," he said, looking up from the papers. "Most inventors miss details that leave openings for challenges. You've closed those gaps." "What's our vulnerability?" I asked. "Patterson might claim the improvements you developed while employed belong to them," Robert explained. "But the core patent predates your employment, and that's what matters. They can't manufacture without infringing." With legal confidence established, I focused on assembling a team. Marco was my first call. "I'm building something new," I told him. "Interested?" He didn't hesitate. "When do I start?" Diane joined next, followed by 2 engineers who'd grown frustrated with Patterson's chaos. Each brought valuable institutional knowledge without violating non-competes. We were careful to improve upon, not simply copy, the original design. While my team refined the product, I developed the business infrastructure. I hadn't anticipated how many decisions entrepreneurship entailed: manufacturing partners, supply chains, distribution channels, marketing strategies, pricing models. Some nights I'd wake in a cold sweat, questioning everything. The responsibility of others depending on me, their livelihoods, their families, weighed heavily. During one particularly dark moment, I nearly called Jeffrey to negotiate a return. Instead, I called Richard. "Second thoughts are normal," he assured me. "Every successful founder has them. The difference is pushing through." Meanwhile, Patterson's situation deteriorated further. Their desperate attempts to recreate my work resulted in a product that newspapers charitably described as fundamentally flawed. Customer returns overwhelmed their service centers. 12 weeks after my dismissal, we received notifications from our industry contacts that Patterson was approaching our same manufacturing partners. "They're starting from scratch," Diane reported, abandoning Tyler's redesign completely. The timing was critical. Our product was nearly ready, but Patterson's resources still dwarfed ours. If they managed to develop a viable alternative before our launch, our advantage would diminish. That night, I made a difficult decision. I drafted an official letter notifying Patterson of their patent infringement regarding the original Metaform line. I wasn't looking to immediately shut down their production. That would hurt innocent retailers and consumers. Instead, I proposed licensing terms that would allow them to continue selling existing inventory while acknowledging my ownership. "Are you sure?" Eliza asked when I showed her the draft. "This reveals our position earlier than planned." "They're going to discover it eventually," I replied. "Better they learn from us than their own legal department." I sent the letter by courier the next morning, addressed directly to Jeffrey. Then I gathered my team. Things are about to accelerate, I told them. From this point forward, we're visible. Are we ready? The determined faces looking back at me provided all the answer I needed. Jeffrey's response came swifter than I anticipated. Not through lawyers as I'd expected, but in person. I was conducting a final quality inspection when our receptionist called. There's a Jeffrey Patterson here demanding to see you. I found him pacing our modest lobby, face flushed with anger or embarrassment, perhaps both. When he saw me, he froze momentarily before composing himself. Is this some kind of joke? He demanded, waving my patent notification letter. Let's talk in my office, I replied, leading him through our workspace. I noticed his eyes darting around, assessing our operation. Once behind closed doors, Jeffrey's facade crumbled. You can't possibly own the patent. The metaform was developed at Patterson. The concept and initial design predate my employment, I explained calmly. Check the filing dates. You were obligated to disclose any prior inventions when hired. I slid a copy of my original employment contract across the desk. Page 7, Appendix B. Prior inventions disclosed by employee. The thermal extraction system and adaptive interface are both listed there. Jeffrey stared at the document, then at me. The realization dawned slowly across his face. You knew this might happen. I knew to protect myself, I corrected. I didn't expect to be replaced by your nephew. His shoulders sagged as the implications sank in. Patterson had been selling my patented technology for years, and now their desperate attempt to redesign around my innovation was failing spectacularly. What do you want? He asked finally. Exactly what the letter states. A fair licensing agreement for existing inventory, and Patterson ceases production of any new units incorporating my patented systems. That's the entire metaform line. It would gut our appliance division. You should have thought about that before deciding I was expendable. After Jeffrey left, our team accelerated final preparations. 3 days later, Ellison Innovations publicly announced the forthcoming release of the EvoCraft Pro, the next evolution in adaptive brewing technology. Our marketing emphasized the improvements, enhanced user recognition, greater energy efficiency, and expanded customization. We positioned ourselves as the authentic innovation, not a corporate imitation. The tagline, designed by the original innovator, was Diane's subtle masterstroke. The industry response was immediate. Tech publications clamored for preview models. Retailers who'd been burned by Patterson's quality issues reached out directly. Even before shipping our first unit, we had pre-orders exceeding our initial production capacity. Patterson's legal team finally responded with predictable aggression, threatening lawsuits for proprietary information theft and breach of contractual obligations. Robert handled these threats with professional precision, responding with documented evidence of my patent ownership and properly disclosed prior inventions. They're bluffing, he assured me after a particularly threatening letter. Their legal position is untenable, and they know it. The final blow came when Patterson's own patent attorneys likely advised them of their precarious position. 2 weeks after our exchange, I received a settlement offer acknowledging my patent ownership and proposing licensing terms, far less favorable than my original offer. Our first production run shipped exactly 14 weeks after my dismissal from Patterson. The reviews exceeded even our optimistic projections. EvoCraft Pro makes the original metaform feel like a prototype, wrote one influential tech reviewer. This is what the technology was always meant to be. As sales gained momentum, former Patterson colleagues began reaching out. Some sought jobs, others shared intelligence about Patterson's increasingly desperate situation. The company had announced a strategic restructuring of their product lines, corporate speak for abandoning the metaform altogether. Most satisfying was Aaron's call informing me that Tyler had been quietly reassigned to special projects, effectively sidelined. Jeffrey's trying to save face, Aaron explained. But everyone knows the truth. I offered Aaron a position on the spot. By month's end, our team had doubled in size, with a waiting list of talented designers and engineers eager to join our venture. When our first quarter sales exceeded projections by 35%, Richard proposed accelerated expansion plans. Retailers were requesting increased inventory, and international distributors were making inquiries. This is just the beginning, he said during our strategy meeting. You've created something with genuine staying power. That night, I walked through our busy production floor, watching as the company I'd built from necessity continued to grow. What had begun as a response to betrayal had transformed into something far more meaningful, a chance to create the culture and products I'd always envisioned. 1 year after my unceremonious dismissal, I stood on a podium accepting the Innovation Excellence Award for the EvoCraft Pro. The irony wasn't lost on me. Patterson had won this same award for the original metaform 3 years earlier. Success is rarely a straight line, I told the audience during my acceptance speech. Sometimes the detours teach us more than the highways ever could. Ellison Innovations had expanded beyond my wildest expectations. We'd moved to larger facilities twice, employed 78 people, and our product line now included 4 models distributed in 23 countries. Diane had been promoted to Chief Marketing Officer. Marco headed our expanded design team, and we'd just secured Series B funding for development of our smart kitchen ecosystem. Patterson's fortunes had moved in the opposite direction. After abandoning the Metaform line, they'd attempted to pivot to lower-end products with mixed results. Their appliance division, once their growth leader, had become a liability. Industry rumors suggested they were seeking buyers for that entire segment of their business. I was reviewing quarterly projections when my assistant announced an unexpected visitor. "Tyler Patterson is asking to see you," she said, barely concealing her surprise. I hesitated, then nodded. "Send him in." The confident young man who'd replaced me was barely recognizable. The expensive haircut had given way to a more modest style, and his designer clothes had been replaced by standard business attire. The arrogance had vanished from his eyes. "Thank you for seeing me," he said, standing awkwardly at the door. "Have a seat," I offered. "What can I do for you?" "I'm here to apologize, first of all," he said, surprising me. I was completely out of my depth. I didn't realize it until everything fell apart. "What happened?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Uncle Jeffrey reassigned me 6 months ago. I've been in the marketing department since then, but they're downsizing next month." He paused, gathering courage. "I've applied for 36 positions without a single callback. My name has become toxic in the industry." The request hung unspoken in the air. I studied the young man who'd unwittingly changed the trajectory of my career. "What did you learn from all this?" I asked. "That connections aren't the same as competence," he replied without hesitation. "And that taking credit for other people's work doesn't mean you understand it." His candor impressed me. "We have an opening in our junior design team. Entry level, no special treatment. You'd report to Marco, who expects excellence and offers no shortcuts." The look of disbelief on his face was worth every difficult moment of the past year. "You'd give me a chance? After everything?" "Everyone deserves the opportunity to rebuild," I said. "Just don't waste it." After he left, I walked through our busy office. Designers collaborated on new concepts, engineers debated technical specifications, and marketing teams finalized our upcoming campaign. The culture we'd built valued innovation, integrity, and the contributions of every team member. That evening, as I was leaving, I received a notification that Patterson Design Works stock had plummeted following announcement of their restructuring plan. Jeffrey was being replaced as CEO. I felt no satisfaction at his downfall. The victory wasn't seeing Patterson struggle. It was watching Ellison Innovations thrive. 2 weeks later, I arrived at work to find a package on my desk. Inside was a vintage drafting compass with a note, "For helping me find my direction again. Thank you for the second chance. Tyler." I placed it beside the framed patent certificate on my shelf. Both were reminders of different lessons, one about protecting your work, the other about defining success on your own terms. The company I'd built wasn't just about innovative products. It embodied the principles I'd always valued, but couldn't fully implement under Patterson. We treated people fairly, recognized contributions, and created a culture where creativity flourished because people felt secure and appreciated. When a reporter asked what motivated me to start Ellison Innovations, I could have mentioned revenge or vindication. Instead, I told the truth. "Sometimes you need to lose what you thought you wanted to discover what you truly needed," I replied. Being replaced was the best thing that ever happened to me. And looking around at what we'd built, I knew it was absolutely true.